My brother mocked me for being single while I paid his rent, then I found his secret affair with my wife and burned their lives silently. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the one holding everything together. In my family, that means you show up, you pay your bills, you swallow your pride, and you carry everyone else when they stumble, even if no one thanks you for it. That's just how it's always been, especially with my younger brother, Luke. He's the kind of person who breezes through life on charisma and a crooked smile. He can screw up monumentally, disappear for weeks, come home jobless and hungover, and still somehow be greeted like a returning hero. My parents have this infinite well of forgiveness for him. For me, they have expectations. I got my first job at 15 and haven't stopped working since. College? I paid my own way, while Luke took a gap year to find himself. He's now on year 7 of that gap, and I'm the idiot covering his rent while he pursues the latest get-rich-quick scheme. It's not like I'm rich. I'm married, trying to keep my own life afloat, but it's always me who gets the late-night call. Luke's in trouble again. Can you help? And every time I say yes, a little more of me disappears. At family dinners, Luke goes out of his way to needle me about being boring. Remember when you used to have fun? He'll laugh, eyes flicking to my wife as if to say, "See? I'm still the cool one." He'll crack jokes about my married life and how I must miss the old single days. My parents just laugh along, ruffling his hair, and I force myself to smile, telling myself that's what family does, support each other, even when it hurts. But lately, it's felt less like support and more like slow suffocation. I lie awake some nights wondering if this is just how things are supposed to be, if the weight I carry is my birthright, or if maybe, just maybe, I'm allowed to want something more. And that's when the resentment really started to grow. It didn't stop at harmless teasing. Over the next few months, Luke turned his mockery into a kind of sport, a performance for whoever would listen. Every group dinner, every family game night, every birthday, he'd find some way to jab at me. "Bet you guys go to bed by 9, huh?" He'd smirk, nudging my wife with his elbow. "Don't worry, I'll teach your husband how to loosen up." Even at Christmas, surrounded by extended family, he made a show of handing me a world's most boring husband mug he'd custom ordered. The table erupted in laughter. I tried to play along, but each comment felt like another layer peeling off my self-worth. I'd catch my wife's tight smile, the way her gaze slid off me and toward Luke, or just past both of us, eyes glazed. My parents barely noticed, too busy doting on Luke, marveling at how good-hearted he was for always bringing life to the room. No one ever asked how I felt. No one noticed how I'd shrink into myself, staring at my plate, trying not to let my hands tremble. I started dreading family gatherings. Even at home, I could feel Luke's words echoing in my head. "Loosen up, man. No wonder you're always tired." He'd text me memes about being whipped or married to the grind, and our parents would chime in with, "Oh, he's just joking." Lighten up. But it didn't feel like a joke. Not when my wife started agreeing, at first with small smiles, then with open laughter, as if she'd rather be on his side than mine. I told myself it didn't matter. I was doing the right thing, being the bigger person, but inside I was crumbling. The humiliation didn't end when the dinners were over. It followed me into my marriage, into my dreams, until I started to wonder if maybe Luke was right about me, and for the first time, I questioned if my family even saw me at all. It was a Saturday evening when things really shifted. I came home from a long day at work, overtime again just to cover the bills, and found my wife and Luke laughing in the living room. My wife looked more relaxed than I'd seen her in months, legs tucked up under her on the couch, a glass of wine in hand. Luke had this smug little grin like he'd just won something. As soon as I stepped inside, the air changed. Their laughter died off, replaced by this awkward, uncomfortable quiet. I told myself it was just my imagination, but then it became a pattern. My wife would vent to Luke about me, sometimes right in front of me as if I was invisible. She'd say things like, "You know how he gets so uptight about money," or "He's always at work, I barely see him." Luke would shrug, acting sympathetic, tossing me these sly looks, like we shared some private joke at my expense. Sometimes, after a glass or two, my wife would even joke about me being the old man of the house, while Luke sat right there soaking it up. Friends started noticing things I tried to ignore. One night, a buddy asked me if Luke and my wife were close, too close. He said he'd seen them out together, coffee shops, late-night drives, places I didn't even know about. I brushed it off because the alternative made my stomach knot with dread. I couldn't believe my own brother would cross a line like that. Couldn't believe my wife would let him. I convinced myself they just understood each other, that maybe I was just jealous or overthinking. After all, Luke needed support. My wife needed a friend. But the distance in my marriage was growing, and I could feel it every time I walked into a room and their conversation stopped cold. I didn't know it yet, but I was about to lose more than just respect. Little things started piling up, turning my daily life into a minefield of doubts. My wife's routines shifted almost overnight. She'd stay up late, glued to her phone, typing with a smile she never wore for me anymore. She started taking late-night showers, locking the bathroom door, something she'd never done in the years we'd lived together. She even began wearing this new perfume, a sharp floral scent I'd never smelled before, and it lingered on her clothes when she came home late from drinks with friends. I wanted to ask her about it, but every time I tried, the words got stuck behind my teeth. Meanwhile, Luke was at our place more than ever. He'd show up after work, claim he needed a break from his place, and plant himself on our couch with my wife. They'd binge-watch shows I'd never seen, order takeout, and burst into laughter at inside jokes. Sometimes I'd get home and find them mid-conversation, suddenly silent when I walked in. The tension was thick enough to choke on. It wasn't just the house. My bank statement started showing little charges I didn't recognize. Coffee shops, bar tabs, the kind of places Luke liked but never had money for. Receipts I didn't remember would appear in the trash, scrawled with my wife's handwriting. I told myself it was just coincidence, that I was being paranoid. But the more I tried to ignore it, the more it gnawed at me. My mind began spinning in circles. Was I imagining things? Was I working too hard, letting stress get the better of me? I replayed every conversation, every glance between them, looking for cracks in my reality. I wanted to trust them both. I needed to. But every night, as I stared at the ceiling beside a wife who faced away from me, I wondered if my own home had already been invaded. And I realized I was starting to question my own sanity. The breaking point crept up quietly, disguised as another family get-together. My parents threw a birthday dinner for my mom. Luke was, of course, the star of the show. He showed up late, brought some stupid novelty hat for Mom, and had everyone in stitches within minutes. I sat at the far end of the table, boxed in by laughter that felt sharp and cold. My wife leaned into Luke's stories, hanging on every word, and every so often she'd glance at me like she pitied how stiff I looked. I wanted to vanish. As the night dragged on, the wine started flowing, and so did the mean-spirited jokes. Luke stood up with his glass, swaying a little, and announced a toast. "Here's to my big brother. He may be boring as hell, but at least he pays my rent." Everyone laughed. My wife actually wiped a tear from her eye. She was laughing so hard. My parents beamed at Luke like he'd just solved world hunger. I felt the flush burning up my neck, but I smiled along, clenching my fists under the table. I barely touched my food after that. When I slipped away to the bathroom, I saw my wife and Luke out on the balcony together, talking in low voices. Their faces were close, too close, and something inside me twisted. I tried to focus on the dull hum of the party, but my ears rang with the sound of their laughter. I wanted to believe it was nothing, just siblings-in-law talking, but the way my wife touched Luke's arm, the way she looked at him, it didn't feel right. When we finally got home that night, my wife pretended nothing was wrong. She changed into pajamas and crawled into bed, already asleep before I could find the words to ask. But sleep wouldn't come for me. All I could think about was the look they'd shared, like a secret I was never meant to see. A few days after that party, my world shifted in a way I couldn't ignore. It was late, past midnight, and I was in bed, pretending to sleep while my wife sat on the edge of the mattress, scrolling through her phone. The screen glowed against her face, illuminating a private smile I hadn't seen in years. I rolled over and she quickly angled the phone away. "Just texting a friend from work," she said. Her voice was too light, too casual. I nodded, letting it slide, but the next evening, when she left her phone charging in the kitchen, I glanced at it. A new message buzzed in from someone saved as Lucy. It was short, just a wink emoji, and "last night was wild." My heart started pounding. That wasn't how she talked to anyone I knew. My first instinct was to convince myself it was innocent, maybe an inside joke. But something about the language, the intimacy, rattled me. When Luke stopped by the next day, he left his phone on the coffee table while he used the bathroom. My hands moved on their own, picking it up. I scrolled through the recent messages. There, buried among the memes and group chats, were texts from a number not saved under my wife's name, but the timing and content matched perfectly. Private jokes, inside references, complaints about me, worded with a cruel kind of intimacy. And then, one message that made my hands go cold. Can't wait till the next sleepover? I put the phone down before Luke came back, forcing my face into something neutral. My chest felt like it was caving in. I tried to tell myself I was wrong, that it was all some stupid misunderstanding. But deep down I knew. The kind of knowing that settles in your bones and won't let you rest. That night, as I lay in the dark beside my wife, I realized I couldn't trust either of them, and I knew I needed to find out the truth, no matter how much it hurt. The next few days were torture. Every moment at home felt staged, like I was walking through someone else's life. I started moving differently, quiet, deliberate, watching my wife and Luke more closely than ever. She was always texting, her laughter softer, her glances at Luke sharp and secretive. He played innocent, but the mask was slipping. I caught him studying me when he thought I wasn't looking. That's when I made a choice. I went online and ordered a small, cheap tracking device. I tucked it into my wife's purse when she left it by the door, hands shaking the whole time. I downloaded a voice recorder app, left my old phone running in the living room when I headed out for work. The paranoia made me feel sick, but every instinct screamed that I needed proof. Needed to see it for myself, no matter the cost. It didn't take long. The tracker pinged her at an unfamiliar address 2 nights in a row, the kind of cheap roadside motel that only shows up on the news when something's gone wrong. The voice recorder picked up low voices, stifled laughter, and then the unmistakable sound of them together on our couch. My couch, my home. But the final blow was a video file sent anonymously to my email, a neighbor's security camera, catching my wife slipping out the back door after midnight, climbing into Luke's car and driving off into the dark. I watched it over and over until the screen blurred with tears and rage. My mind fractured, but my resolve hardened. They thought I was clueless. They thought I was weak. But I knew everything now. The affair wasn't just real, it was right under my nose, and it had been going on for months. And in that moment, I stopped being a victim and started planning my revenge. If there's a moment where your soul just breaks, I think this was mine. I barely slept. I'd stare at the ceiling, every muscle rigid, reliving the videos and audio in my head until I thought I'd go insane. I'd find myself standing in the shower long after the water ran cold, just trying to breathe, to wash off the shame. At work, I became a ghost, fumbling meetings, forgetting deadlines, ducking into storage rooms just to cry where no one could see me. I stopped answering calls from my parents, stopped replying to friends. I didn't want to hear the pity in their voices or the suspicion in their questions. The house felt poisonous. Every time Luke showed up, I'd grit my teeth and force a smile, trying to act like nothing was wrong. My wife barely looked at me. She'd disappear into the bedroom to nap or out to run errands that always ended with Luke somehow helping her. My parents kept calling, annoyed about Luke's unpaid rent, reminding me to be patient with him, he's family. The irony was bitter enough to make me want to scream. One night, after everyone was asleep, I sat alone in my car, parked under a dead streetlight. I stared at my phone, thumb hovering over my lawyer's number, then over the group chat with my family. I felt hollow, disposable, like I'd been replaced and didn't even know it. The only thing that kept me from disappearing completely was the cold, simmering anger that pulsed beneath all the heartbreak. I was bottomed out, absolutely alone, betrayed by the people who were supposed to love me most. And still, I stayed quiet. Still, I pretended everything was normal. Because deep down, I was waiting for the right moment, when I'd have the power to shatter the world they'd built on my back. And as I sat in the darkness, I realized I was done being their scapegoat. Something changed in me after that night. It was like my grief calcified into something cold and sharp. The sadness didn't leave, but it stopped controlling me. Instead, I started moving with a purpose I hadn't felt in years. I became methodical. Every text, every receipt, every voicemail, anything that might prove what had happened, I collected and backed up to a private drive. I started taking screenshots of Luke's bank transfers from me, every rent payment, every emergency loan. I filed away photos of my wife's schedules, screenshots of her messages, time-stamped and organized. I quietly started meeting with a divorce lawyer during my lunch breaks. I laid everything out for her, no details spared. The look on her face as I explained was a mix of shock and sympathy. "Don't let them know you're onto them," she told me. "We'll get everything ready. Timing will be everything." It was the first time in months that I felt even a flicker of hope. Someone was finally on my side. At home, I played my part. Luke would crash on my couch eating my food, dropping snide little comments about how hard it must be to keep a woman happy. My wife would roll her eyes, acting annoyed, but I could see the gleam in both their eyes when they thought I wasn't looking. I didn't give them the satisfaction of a meltdown. I kept paying the bills, kept up appearances, let them believe I was too weak or clueless to do anything. But every night behind a locked office door, I compiled my arsenal, a digital and paper trail so thick they couldn't weasel out. I even started recording some of our conversations in case either of them tried to twist the story later. I didn't know what the endgame would look like, but I was ready. And with every secret I gathered, I felt the power shifting back into my hands. When I finally moved, it was almost anticlimactic. I stopped paying Luke's rent, just like that. No warning, no excuses. He called me cursing and pleading in the same breath, and for the first time I let his calls go to voicemail. My parents got involved, outraged on his behalf, demanding to know what he'd done to deserve this. I told them I was tight on money and hung up before the guilt could claw its way in. I blocked Luke's number and let him squirm. At the same time, my lawyer filed the divorce paperwork, served to my wife at work where she couldn't make a scene. I didn't even leave a note. Just the cold, legal envelope and a silence she'd never expected from me. I watched from the window as she stormed into the house, face white with shock, fingers shaking as she dialed Luke over and over. She never once called me. Then I sent the evidence, screenshots, texts, photos, timelines to my family's group chat. No context, just the truth, all at once. Messages exploded, disbelief, rage, people taking sides, my parents frantically calling both me and Luke. I didn't pick up. I didn't owe anyone an explanation anymore. Luke and my wife tried to get ahead of the story, calling family, spinning lies about how it wasn't what it looked like. But the evidence was undeniable. My parents, once his biggest supporters, were suddenly silent. Extended family started sending me messages of support, cautious at first, then angry on my behalf. That night, I walked through my house alone for the last time, my footsteps echoing on the hardwood. No more laughter, no more whispered secrets behind my back. I felt hollow, exhausted, but also free. And for the first time, I realized they had more to lose than I ever did. It was like pulling the pin on a grenade and walking away. In the days that followed, everything blew up. Luke was evicted within a week. Turns out nobody else was willing to bankroll his lazy charm, and our parents refused to take him in after seeing the proof for themselves. Extended family cut him off completely. Group chats went silent when he tried to defend himself. The golden boy, finally out in the cold, no one left to blame but himself. My wife's life unraveled even faster. The scandal leaked to her boss, thanks to one of my lawyer's mutual connections, and suddenly, her work friends stopped calling. She lost her job, her reputation, her safety net in a matter of days. The look on her face when she showed up to pack her things, rage, humiliation, a kind of brokenness I'd never seen before, should have made me feel something. But all I felt was tired. I let her take whatever she wanted. It was just stuff anyway. My parents, desperate to save face, begged me to keep things private. They even tried to guilt me. Family matters stay in the family. But I was done carrying their secrets. When they started defending Luke again, minimizing what he'd done, insisting he made a mistake, I dropped more proof. More texts, more photos, every lie exposed. I didn't care about their shame. Not anymore. I moved out without a word, leaving behind a house filled with memories that now felt poisoned. I changed my number, blocked half my family. The group chats died out, replaced by a strange, peaceful silence. For once the narrative was mine. No yelling, no dramatic confrontations, just a quiet, relentless truth that destroyed everything they'd built on my back. And as the dust settled, I realized I'd never truly belonged there anyway. In the months that followed, I started over. I found a small apartment on the other side of town. Quiet, sunlit, mine. I filled the silence with things I'd always wanted to do. Long walks at sunrise, cooking dinners nobody criticized, reconnecting with friends I'd pushed away in my years of survival mode. Therapy became a lifeline, not just to process the betrayal, but to finally dig up the roots of how I'd ended up carrying everyone else's burdens for so long. Luke faded into the background, his charm finally useless without someone else's wallet or reputation to lean on. My ex-wife tried reaching out once, a single text. "I'm sorry, I made a mistake," but I didn't reply. I realized her apology wasn't for me, but for herself. That chapter was over. My parents, forced to see the truth, went quiet too. Their calls stopped. The family group chat was a graveyard, just occasional awkward forwards and chain messages. There was no going back. Some days the loneliness felt heavy, but it was honest. I didn't have to play the clown, the wallet, the scapegoat. I found a strange comfort in my own company, piecing myself back together one small routine at a time. There was peace in knowing I'd ended the cycle, that I didn't have to live in a house where love was conditional and betrayal was swept under the rug. The scars would never fully fade, but they became reminders. I survived. I rebuilt. Now when I look in the mirror, I see someone I actually recognize. Someone who didn't stay silent, who chose truth over comfort, who finally set himself free. And if you're reading this, if you've ever been the one holding everyone else up, just know, you deserve to be seen too.